Welcome to Beating Cancer Daily. Beating stage 4 cancer for 30 years still takes my breath away every time I say it. I'm Saranne, founder of the Comedy Cures Foundation, and I hope you'll join me for just a few minutes daily for the next 365 days so we may laugh, learn, maybe cry a little as we live our best days beating cancer daily together. I don't know about you, but I had too much time to prepare for surgery. There was such a backlog in New York City when I had to have my first cancer surgery. I waited 6 weeks, and that was after 6 years of a misdiagnosis. So I wish that I had something to do. I'd had a roadmap, a plan, something that I could have done to really reinforce my mind, body, and spirit before I went in for that surgery. So I'm going to bring on our most favorite recurring guest, our functional medicine expert, whole health educator, certified health coach, certified nutrition specialist, and RN, Jacqui Bryan, because she has a plan that she would like to share with us today. And if you just love someone going through surgery, take this plan to them and share it with them. So hopefully none of us have to go back for surgery. But if we do, we are armed with this information. Welcome, Jacqui.
Thank you, Saranne. It's so great to be here. Like you, I wish I had had an understanding that preparing for surgery was equally as important as how you take care of yourself after surgery. And so I thought this would be a really great focus for us today.
Well, not only is it something that you can do for yourself to help yourself get through this, but it takes your mind off the surgery because you actually have an action plan to follow. So I think it's great for the mind, it's great for the body. And if you have someone supporting you through the surgical process, then it gives you something to work on together. And I think sometimes going through surgery can be so isolating. You feel so alone. And this is a way to connect to somebody that might want to be a caregiver.
That's so true, Saran, because I think when we, especially with a cancer diagnosis, there's so many things that are out of our control that if we have some things that we can focus on, like preparing for a surgery, then it gives us some sense of being back in the driver's seat. What we're going to talk about today may actually change the trajectory of your surgical experience. And this area is actually called rehabilitation or prehab. And you know that we hear about rehabilitation after surgery or rehab. This is actually prehabilitation. So what you're doing before you actually go in for surgery. And it matters. It really matters.
I love that prehab. And Jacqui, I had to find a lot of humor about this. And there was a meme where a lady's on the operating table and the nurses are surrounding her before the surgery. And they say, hey, for an extra $25, we could leave the surgical lamps on so you have a tan by the time you get done. Now, that is just minutes before surgery making that decision. But I just thought it was cute.
That is cute. And those rooms are so cold, right? They used to, when I first had one of my surgeries, as a younger person, they gave you some sort of sedative before you went in to kind of take the edge off. And then now they bring you into the freezing cold, bright room and they put the warm blankets on you, which is very nice. But I think it's definitely a bit of a shock when you get in there.
Yeah, it is always so cold. I think it's so they don't fall asleep. That's why. If they keep it cold, they won't fall asleep. But this is prior to that moment of the cold surgical room. And I love the fact that there are things that we can actually do to help ourselves.
For sure. I mean, if you think about, well, you know that I love to exercise and play tennis and run, and I run the Boston Marathon a couple times a long time ago. And I like to think of surgery almost as running a marathon. You wouldn't show up to the starting line of the race without training. And the same sort of goes for surgery. And I think that's an important thing for us to think about. Your body actually needs to be in peak condition to heal faster, to fight off infections and get you back home as soon as possible. The science on this is pretty interesting. Even what's noted is that even simple changes in your nutrition, how you're moving before surgery, the sleep quality, and even stress management can lower the risk of complications by about 30% and even shorten your hospital stay by 1 to 2 days.
That's amazing. I don't know why the insurance companies don't promote this because it would have them pay less. Just from a financial point of view, that's a good idea.
It is. It is. It's so important. And I think the challenge is getting people organized enough to be able to think about their health going into surgery because it's stressful.
I know a lot of people write on their bodies because they want to make sure that the right side of them is operated on, whether it's a limb or they write on their body about which organ. So there's no mistake. And some people put funny messages so that when they open the hospital gown, the medical staff in the surgery room has a lot of chuckles out of what they've written on their bodies.
Yeah, yeah, that's so funny. When I had my double mastectomy at the Brigham in Boston, my husband set booby traps on the left-hand side of the bed so that people, like any nurses that were trying to take blood pressures or do needle sticks on my left side, would basically hurt themselves trying to
Oh
get.
my gosh, you never told me that. And I know Mike is such a trickster. He loves surprises. That is
Oh my gosh. He
hilarious.
put chairs and things so that, like, in the middle of the night when they came in to take your blood pressure, they couldn't get to that side of my body. And I just thought that was really funny. But, he loves to tell that story. We didn't actually mark up my body, but he was frustrated because, and I love nurses, I'm a nurse myself. But even though there was a sign that said, don't do any blood pressures on her left side because I had an axillary dissection of my lymph nodes. And even though it said that, sometimes they didn't see it on the wall and people make mistakes. And so he set all these little booby traps in the room. It was very funny.
There was one girl that wrote on her knee, yes, pick me for the knee to operate on.
So cute. That's so cute.
People are so creative. They're just so creative.
We are. Well, if we're devising a plan going into surgery, it would be wonderful if we had 4 to 6 weeks to plan. Now, I did not have that amount of time. My surgeries were kind of one after the other. After, I think over the course of the year, I had a total of 6 surgeries and chemo and radiation and all of those things. But the first couple of surgeries that I had were sort of every week or every other week. But the golden rule when you're putting your pre-surgery plan together is really just consult your physician before you do any of these things. This is really important. Again, Saranne and I are the conversation starters. We just want you to think about, hey, what can I do that's going to enhance my recovery moving forward? That's what we're talking about today. But some of the things may not be a good fit for your unique situation. So just make sure that you check with your doctor before you do any of these things.
That's a good point, Jackie. We always say that. We're just trying to get you thinking and then consulting with your team. So that's really important to us that you let your team be your captains. We're just kind of the story starters.
Yeah, and I actually broke this plan down to really 4 pillars. The first is nutrition, the second is movement, the third is sleep and stress, because that's incredibly important for us to heal. And then even how you're mapping your success, right? Kind of keeping track. And so I think this is a really important way to approach any type of surgery preparation or any type of healthcare preparation you're doing for your own self.
I just remember the only thing they told me was how long not to have fluids or eat and to take off my nail polish. That was
Yeah.
about the extent of my preoperative surgery thoughts that anyone gave me.
Yeah, it's true, right? They told you to take the nail polish off because they were using the pulse oximeter to see what your oxygen saturation was like. And if you've got fake nails or anything else on, the little clippy things they put on your nails weren't necessarily going to work.
Oh, wait, Jackie, they asked if I had dentures and had removed my contact lenses. But other than that, I was on my own.
Yeah, so you don't swallow your teeth.
So Then you'd have to have another surgery to get the teeth out. That's terrible. You know, someone's done that. Don't
I
swallow
know.
your teeth.
I know. Usually these recommendations are done after something bad's happened. Oops, we probably should mention get rid of your teeth if you have any ones that are not permanent.
But don't take out the teeth that are attached. That's what I was going to say. This is for teeth that are not permanent.
All right, I'm going to start with the first pillar, right, which is nutrition, and you have to fuel your healing. And if you go into surgery with an empty tank, your body is going to struggle to repair that tissue and to fight infection. That is number one, right? If we want to focus on healing, we have to focus on nutrition because that's really the key to accelerating recovery and obviously getting out of the hospital earlier. So the main player for that is protein. Protein is king. So when you're going into surgery, you want to increase dietary protein. And again, this is all stuff that you need to discuss with your physician. But as a general rule of thumb, if you are going into surgery having 1.2 to 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight is recommended daily. And so if you have a person that's 150 pounds, you divide the pounds by 2.2 kilograms, and that will give you 68.0 kilograms. And then you take that number and you multiply it times the 1.2, which would give you 81 grams of protein per day. Or you can multiply the 68 times 2, and that would give you 136. And so that would be the person's range, getting in 81 to 136 grams of protein per day. And again, that's the building blocks for your tissue and for your recovery. Really important.
I know that we're all going to have to re listen to that with a pen and a paper and write that down because my brain doesn't work that fast. But I did understand that we should talk to our surgical team about increasing our protein before we have surgery. And Jacqui, what are some suggestions for that?
Well, I think it's really helpful if you obviously think about your current diet, right? So if you are someone that eats animal protein, consuming things like chicken, fish, even some lean grass-fed meats, you can also get protein in Greek yogurts. There's also plant-based sources of protein as well, although it's a little bit more challenging to get in the protein that you need before surgery with just plants. So you really want to pay attention to that, using organic tempeh, organic soy, even getting nuts and seeds into the mix, but really pay attention to where that is coming from. I always like to think about the portion sizes as well. So if you look at your palm of your hand right now and subtract your fingers, that's about 3 ounces of an animal protein, like a chicken or a fish. And that's going to have about 25 to 30 grams of protein per serving. So if you would have your palm minus your fingers size in chicken or fish, that's going to be about 25 to 30 grams. And if you have that 3 times a day, that's going to be anywhere from 75 to 90 grams per day. And that's going to help you hit the minimum requirement for your surgical preparation.
And if you add two more snacks, what could they add snack wise that might have some protein?
Well, you could do a hard-boiled egg for 6 grams of protein. You could do some nuts and seeds. You could do a nut and seed mix where you'd get maybe, depending upon how much you have, anywhere from 6 to 10 grams of protein. You can throw in some chia seeds into your yogurt to boost that with some healthy fats, which also are really important. But again, it's about being creative and being aware. So if you're 4 to 6 weeks out of your surgery, we really want to think about how am I getting in my protein sources because we want to be in the best physical condition going into the surgery. And the other thing to think about in addition to the protein is to eat at regular intervals, right? So have 3 balanced meals with 2 protein-rich snacks every 3 to 4 hours, and that's going to help keep your blood sugar stable, and it's actually going to help prevent muscle breakdown. Right. So as we age, and unfortunately we're all aging, one of the things that happens is we lose muscle, right? It's a very common problem. So we want to make sure that we're eating at regular intervals and getting the right amount of protein.
I did not hear Twinkies and sugar snacks in the diet that you are recommending. So, from the past episodes that we've done, I'm assuming having an anti-nutrient like sugar is not what we want to do.
No, sugar and alcohol, that's not going to serve you well. And I hate to be the bearer of the bad news, but we're working hard to improve our tissue and the integrity of our tissue and our ability to heal fast. And those are things that are not going to help, right? I mean, keeping your blood sugar stable is so important. And not only eating at regular intervals, but also combining a fat, a fiber, and a protein at every meal and snack to just help with that stability of the blood sugar is going to be really beneficial.
We've done episodes on alcohol and fatty liver. So, we know that you shouldn't be consuming it at a massive level. But that's interesting that it actually could be more detrimental going into surgery. So, do you want to talk about that for a minute?
Well, it's toxic, right? I mean, if alcohol and sugar, your body doesn't like it. And when you couple that with the stress of surgery is stressful, right? And so we want to do what we can to help our body and not hurt it. So be a good partner to your body by bringing in those nutrients. I mean, the other thing for us to think about is how important hydration is. As we get older, I talk to many clients that say to me, "Oh, I don't drink a lot of water because I always have to pee." And they don't want to have to worry about peeing during their, if they're taking a trip or going anywhere, but peeing is good, right? So the goal would be for an individual to consume 2 to 3 liters of water a day. Or you can do the math again, Saranne, because I know how much you love the math. If we look at that person that weighs 150 pounds, if we divide their body weight in half, that's 75 ounces. And 75 ounces is about what that individual needs at a minimum. And what's really interesting is that if someone has dehydration, even 1% dehydration, that's been shown to delay wound healing and recovery. So it's significant.
Wow, I'm a water fanatic. So, I am drinking 8 ounces every hour. I just love water. It's just a weird thing. People make jokes about it. But I never thought of it in terms of wound healing and how important it would be. But I guess it's logical because the tissue has moisture and it would be easier to repair than it was just old and dried out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, everything works better in a moist environment. And when we think about the surgeon going in there, we want to have that area as moist as possible. And again, that's going to help with healing. If you're bored with water, add some lemon or other type of flavor enhancer of I actually take frozen fruit, maybe frozen mango, and I'll throw it into some water just to give it a little variety with the flavor. It might be a good idea to limit caffeine, things like tea and coffee a week before, and definitely avoid alcohol at least a week before. And the reason for that is alcohol can have a blood thinning effect. And we want to be sure to avoid that because we really don't want our blood too thin, right? Especially since we're trying to heal. And this is a conversation that your surgeon will probably have with you. They'll probably have you come off of many of your supplements and some fish oil and things along that line. But there are nutraceuticals, and nutraceuticals meaning supplements that you can take, especially if you're somebody that is at nutritional risk, meaning you're already going into surgery with a deficit. And so it's really important for you to talk to your doctor about that. If you're somebody that has anemia or if you're somebody that has another chronic condition, talking to your team about immunonutrition. And that immunonutrition is really using supplements like the amino acid arginine or even omega-3 fatty acids or even vitamin D that can support your immune system in the days leading up to surgery. Because really the surgeons care about how you're coming into surgery because it affects their outcomes. And hospitals track surgical outcomes. And patients, when you're going into surgery, it's not a bad idea to check your surgeon's outcomes, right? Because you want to make sure that they have good surgical outcomes because that's what you're going for as well.
I have definitely done that, and I have picked surgeons because I've looked at their surgical outcomes. and seen the reviews. So it's a really good idea to do that research before you commit and to get a second opinion and see who you feel comfortable with because there's skill, but there's also bedside manner. Some people choose not to work with a surgeon because the bedside manner of that surgeon stresses them out and they want to be in the best state possible. So, skill and bedside manner and surgical date that it works for you in your life. Those are three things that I always remember considering.
It is. It's important to look into all of those things. And I love that you said seeking out a second opinion because I did that for everything that I did because it gives another set of eyes on your case, which gives the patient a little bit, I think, more comfort to know that they're going down the right path. And it could be that they come up with a different plan, and maybe that's a plan that they prefer, or maybe they come up with the same plan as the other physician that you were planning on working with, and that will just reinforce your decision.
And don't be shy to say to one of the surgeons, I did get a second opinion, and this person thought this strategy. Is there a reason why you would or wouldn't do that strategy? And have them talk to you and not defend their position, but just have an educated conversation so that when you make your decision, you've really made an informed decision.
Yeah, and I think that's so important because I have always found the physicians that I've worked with, they really appreciate the feedback, right? And I would be concerned if you come in with different feedback and they have an issue with it, right? So most surgeons that I've met with, they are very open to discussing different options as well.
I wanted to tell this joke so badly when you were talking about water and the bathroom, because you always have to put a bathroom joke in, but I couldn't find it and I didn't want to screw it up. And so I actually had to look it up while you were talking. But it's if you're an American before you go to the bathroom, what are you while you're in the bathroom?
What are you while you're in the bathroom?
Yeah,
No idea.
European.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh, that's so cute.
It's so old. We used to tell that 1,000 times when we were in elementary school, and I just wanted to say it so badly.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. That is so, so cute. I wanted to touch on being sedentary, right? Sedentary meaning not active. If you have sedentary habits, that's going to weaken your muscles, it's going to weaken your lungs, and it does raise your risk of getting pneumonia post-operatively, right? So that's something we want to think about. So the second pillar is really about movement. How do we strengthen our bodies to be more resilient? And if you think of someone that is inactive or sedentary, I like to think of their body as being more brittle, more frail. If you're staying active, you're not just getting fit, you're boosting your mitochondria. Those are the energy centers of your cells. You're enhancing oxygen delivery. And I think that's really something to be very mindful of because sometimes we just kind of sit around when we're just waiting for surgery to happen. Now, obviously, if you're having knee surgery, hip surgery, you can't be quite as active, but you can find other ways to move. I mean, really, the goal would be to move about 30 minutes every day, depending upon what your ability is. Again, this is something that you would talk with your medical team about, but you can even do simple body weight strength exercises, arm exercises, squats. And I would start slow, like the first week, do 20-minute walk. And by week 4, you might be comfortably adding in resistance bands and increasing your duration. And not only is this going to help you with healing, this could be the thing that launches you on your new healthy habits, right? So making sure that you're doing things that are going to not only help with healing, but also help your long-term health.
I was in the best health when I had advanced cancer. I did yoga 7 times a week. I had a washboard stomach. You could see the definition of the muscles. I really used that time to be as healthy as possible. And it helped me get through all of that treatment and all of those surgeries. It really did. I started with dancing just movement. And if you are sedentary and you are not exercising, don't just go from 0 to 100. Start slow, even just start moving around the house. In the blue zones, we've taught that they use a lot of reasons to get up and down off the floor. They actually sit on the floor and they get up and down naturally many times. And at first, getting up off the floor could be a real challenge. Hold on to a chair or a couch or a coffee table until you start getting used to doing that. And if that's allowed, I mean, don't get up off the floor if your surgery is something that you would hurt yourself if you did that prior to surgery or right after surgery and you rip out your stitches. But just thinking of natural ways to move, right? Just to get your body flowing. And then there's so many classes that you can take for free online. If you have a phone, you could even watch and just do some simple movement and then walking in nature. We have that episode and forest bathing. There's so many ways to incorporate movement into your day without actually going to an exercise class. And Jackie, I have a confession.
What's your confession?
So I went into my surgery doing a handstand. And I realized that wasn't such a good idea because I just had on underwear under my gown and the gown fell down to the floor and I flashed everybody. I don't know what I was thinking. The gravity pulled the gown down. So I gave people a little show outside the OR. But for me, that was a sign of defiance, like that I could do a handstand. I used the wall actually because I couldn't do a handstand on my own without the wall supporting me. But I did that. And then once that just revealed too much, and that was so embarrassing, then I just decided from that point forward, I was going to dance into my surgeries. So I just said, hey, I want to walk in. And I don't know if your hospital allows you to walk in. Sometimes they make you go on the gurney. But I decided that I was going to dance into every surgery. And so that was a lot of fun too.
Oh, that's so cute. Now we know if there's listeners out there that are dancing into surgery, they got that idea from you.
Well, actually, if you look online, there are a lot of people now who dance into surgery because it's kind of a craze on TikTok to just
Yes, yeah.
dance everywhere. So it is quite a craze. But I had my surgeries over 20 years ago. So there was no TikTok. And so at that point, when the dinosaurs were roaming the earth, I was dancing into surgery.
Oh, that's so funny. When I was going in for my final surgery of the year, it was my sixth surgery, and that's where they were taking out the expanders in my chest and putting in the implants. My husband and I had gone the weekend before mountain climbing. We are big mountain climbers, so we had gone hiking, and it was in the spring. And when we were coming, we had hiked up. It wasn't a huge mountain. It was maybe 4,000 feet. And so I was coming down the mountain and I hit an ice patch and I slid really far and I was bruised and cut all over, like my arms, my legs, my everything. So it was a day and a half later that I went in for surgery and I show up in my little Johnny with cuts and bruises and everything. And the doctors look at my husband. I didn't do it. It wasn't me because I looked like I had been through the war zone as I'm coming in for this final surgery. It was the same surgical team. They were all excited for me to finish. And I was like, yeah, so maybe not being that kind of active, you could actually just aim for 7,000 steps a day on your Fitbit or other pedometer. The goal with movement, whether it be the dancing into the surgery or hiking or getting 7,000 steps on your pedometer, it's not to run the marathon. It's to ensure that your heart and your lungs are ready for the stress of anesthesia and the healing process. That's the purpose of this recommendation. And while activity will help with all of those things, activity is also beneficial for improving sleep and stress. And those are the last two pillars I really want to focus on. And when we think about sleep and stress, surgery is an enormous stressor on your body. I mean, we think about it as an emotional stress because we're going into it, we're anxious, our family's anxious, but it's a physical stressor on your body. So if you're going in already exhausted or already anxious, your cortisol levels are going to be high, which is going to delay your wound healing. And Saranne, you're an expert at bringing laughter and joy into situations, and that's a perfect way for us to neutralize that cortisol and the other chemicals that are going to be hurtful in the healing process.
Well, I love that you said that because that is my tip that I give to everyone. And I didn't know all these strategies that you're saying, Jacqui. So I have even more strategies to share now with people who are going in for surgery. But I've always had this joke technique where I tell everyone going into surgery, listen to the Comedy Cures laugh line 1-888 ha 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 ha. That's four ha's. And press one to hear a pro comic or two to hear an amateur. Three, you can tell us a joke. But for this point, find a joke. It can be so simple. You don't even have to remember it. Just write it down on a little piece of paper and take it with you to the hospital. And then from the minute you get there till the minute you leave to go into the operating room, tell everyone that they have to tell you a joke before they can operate on you. And then tell them that they can read it off their phone, they can have it on a piece of paper, they can tell a joke that somebody else just said, and that everybody has to laugh, even if they've heard the joke twice, including you. It has such a magical effect, not only on your pre-surgery, but being in the operating room and then after you come out. People will say, "Oh, I'm not a good joke teller. I can't remember jokes. I don't have a joke." And just say, it doesn't matter. You're going to laugh anyway. Just get a simple joke from a colleague or look one up on your phone at kidsjoke.com or go to the Comedy Cures Foundation and look a joke up at comedycures.org. And then everybody has to tell you a joke. Every single person in that OR has to tell you a joke. And we have an episode on it called Comedians in the OR. It's such a cool strategy. And please come to the comedycures.org website and tell me your experience with it because I love to hear what happens. And I'll give you a little spoiler. Usually, the doctor and nurses spend more time with you. They are invigorated by this creative process. They focus more on you in your surgery. And usually they come by and tell you more jokes when you're in post-op. So it's such a fun little strategy.
It's a wonderful way to connect, Saranne. I think that's great. And you said it beautifully when you said the physicians get in on it, or the team, the surgical team gets in on it. And if you think about it, what is that laughter doing for them? That laughter is basically helping to calm them. I mean, we know that anxiety is something that happens to us as patients, but there's also situations where medical providers feel anxious or stressed, or you don't really know what's going on in their life. I mean, everybody shows up to that OR with their own stuff, right? Their own things going on in their life. And so, one thing that we can do before surgery to counteract some of the stress and anxiety and building that resilience is to use progressive muscle relaxation or even breathing, doing the box breathing. And so if we did the breathing technique of 4-4-4-4, that's where we inhale through our nose for 4 seconds, we hold it for 4 seconds, we exhale for 4 seconds, and we hold it for 4 seconds. And if you did this for 10 minutes a day, it's going to help balance your HPA axis, which is your hypothalamic pituitary axis, which is the internal messenger for your body. It's the stress regulator, and that's really helpful. And it's also going to help with sleep. I mean, our goal going into surgery, and this is really the final pillar, is to try to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep and get into bed by 10 o'clock if possible, Saranne.
I'm trying. Do you know that I did one night's sleep of 9 hours? The rest are
Wow.
usually about two. And I tried it for one night. I did 9 hours. I just made myself go back to sleep. My skin looks so good.
Was Mark poking you to make sure you were still
He
alive?
did because I am trying to get better, but my travel schedule has been insane. 4 trips to the West Coast in 1 month to speak. And it has just been this insane plane travel back and forth. So one night I just said, I'm home. I'm going to try to get 9 hours. And my skin bounced right back from all that dryness of the airplane. And I thought, oh, wow. This is how everybody else lives who gets 7 to 9 hours.
Well, it is hard. You are all over the place, and it's hard to get a good sleep routine in. And that's why I was saying if you can, not just you, but all our listeners, get into bed by 10 o'clock at night and have a no screen rule if possible. Put the phone away an hour before bed. That blue light that comes from the devices actually blocks melatonin production that's coming from your pineal gland. And that is something that is going to keep your brain awake, right? So we want a cool, dark, and quiet environment. Get rid of the devices you're charging next to your bed. The temperature should be anywhere from 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit and dark, right? Some people get those light blocking shades. Those are really nice way for us to set our environment for proper sleep hygiene. I actually wear one of those little eye mask things that really blocks everything out. And that's just because I don't have the light out shades in my bedroom. But no matter how you find your way to improved sleep hygiene and managing stress and bringing in the nutrients and the movements, one of the best ways to figure out how you're doing with all this is to track and keep a simple log, right? So if surgery is 3 weeks away, then really start thinking about getting in that protein that we were talking about, the 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. See if you're hitting your step goal or even dancing or whatever you can find for mobility. And then even start a journal to help you track how you're feeling. Saranne's whole focus and passion is to bring laughter and joy into a very difficult situation, people that are dealing with cancer. And I think I know it's contagious because I get the joy of working with her every week on this. But just keep in mind that those are strategies that are going to help you build a more resilient body. And there is evidence that supports that when your body is more resilient, you are going to heal better. You don't have to be perfect. It's really about just being prepared and starting some of these habits early if you can. Even if you've got surgery next week, start thinking about what you can do from a nutritional standpoint. Back off on the alcohol and the caffeine and the sugar and bring in more of those nutrient rich foods.
And Jackie, it's okay to seek support. So get into a support group at your hospital or see if they offer any kind of services, because maybe just talking to a professional about your anxiety going into a surgery could really help. And if there aren't services, there are nonprofit organizations like the American Cancer Society or I'm Too Young for This or TNBC. There are support groups that you can join online, even if you can't physically go to one, just to get rid of some of that pre surgical anxiety. You should be supported through this. Maybe you have a friend. I have an episode on elders. Look for someone in your community who has gone through cancer treatment, made it out the other side. They're having a vibrant life right now. They can kind of coach you through. And this podcast is designed to support you every single day. That's why there are way more than 400 episodes. There are people going through the same thing in 148 countries that we have listeners in that are living the same story. And so we're here to support you on a daily basis. That's why it's called Beating Cancer Daily. So write to us if you want a hug or tell us how you're getting through your pre-op and prehab, as Jackie called it. because this is an incredible global community on 7 continents. Jacqui, I just want to thank you for bringing this topic to Beating Cancer Daily. It's so important, and we value you so much.
Thank you, Saranne. I think that prehab might be the name of the podcast.
Oh, you didn't name one prior to this. So I love the fact that you were thinking the same thing when you said that. I went, wow, that could be an intriguing title. Let's see if I use it. So I just want to thank you again, Jacqui, and say to you, I hope you have a blessed day, and I'll see you tomorrow. If you loved today's episode, then tell the world. Why? Because Beating Cancer Daily is a listener and donor supported experience. So the more people you tell and the more people that join us, the more robust and interesting programs our nonprofit, the Comedy Cures Foundation, can bring to you throughout the year. So if you have some extra change, I'd love you to go to comedycures.org and make a donation today of whatever level is comfortable for you. And it will be tax deductible to the extent allowed by law, because Comedy Cures is a nonprofit 501c3 organization founded from my chemo chair, April 1999, and we've been going strong ever since. So please consider making a donation today and help our community and this podcast thrive. Guess what time it is? It's time for me to read the disclaimer. Beating Cancer Daily and the membership circle are not in lieu of medical advice or treatment. They are for entertainment purposes only. Please consult your healthcare team to review your best strategy. Thanks for listening. See you guys tomorrow.